What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and today we're going to talk about the XFL for a little bit, but get into the Spring League. I am excited to talk about the Spring League. Anyways, if it's your first time here, glad to have you. If you're a return viewer, thanks for coming back and thanks for watching more videos. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. Now, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the XFL. So, of course, we had information come out. Dany and The Rock have been doing some more interviews, and of course, they were on a sports show, and the name of the sports show was Stick to Sports, and of course, it wasn't sticking to sports. It had to talk with nothing other than kneeling and, kneeling for the national anthem, because I guess that's what football is all about now. Football is all about is all about politics. It's not about the sports anymore. And so that's, of course, what we have to talk about. And so that's where we're going to start this off. Now, you know my stance on this. I feel that kneeling for the national anthem is disrespectful. Period. The whole reason of having the national anthem was to show patriotism and unity for our country and for those, and just to show honor for those that have made the sacrifices for us to have the lives that we do and to have everything that we do in this exceptional country. There's no other country in the world like it. And to kneel, it's just disrespectful to those people who've made sacrifices for you to be able to play the game that you're playing. That's my stance on it. That's the way I feel about it, and you're not going to change my mind about it. Now, talking on the sports show, of course, they go through the whole litany of things and all of this stuff, and it's a really neat story about them buying the XFL. But when it comes to this kneeling thing, I hate to say it. No, I don't really hate to say it. I told you so. I did a video about it where, I talk about how The Rock's politics could play into what we see with the XFL. And that's what we're starting to see here with it. Truly. Again, I hate saying it and I hate looking at it this way, but, the writing was on the wall when he came out, and especially the way he explained why he was doing what he was doing politically and all of that. It just, and more his, financial ties really showed me kind of where his allegiances lied and where his kind of thought process was with things. Now, I think he's totally in it for the fans and for the players, but I think that there are just other things that mean more to him at the end of the day, and it does show, and this is one of those things, where it shows where their allegiances and where it lies. And I don't really think that this is a good thing, obviously. But before we kind of go down that road with it, let's kind of get the quote that they quote Dany from. So Dany says, "Patriotism is not indifferent. Patriotism is fighting, representing, and celebrating, and calling out what's wrong with the country you love." I have a lot of stuff with that whole statement. The whole thing of patriotism for me is standing up for our country and rallying around our country. Yes, we've had a lot of, the United States hasn't always done everything the greatest. We've had some mishaps throughout our country's history, but overall, the United States of America has truly been a beacon of light for the rest of the world for her whole her entire existence. So I don't agree with that statement. And then she goes on to say, and so what we look for is if a player wants to kneel, if a player wants to stand, let them do it in unity. Listen, you can't do it in unity. If one person's standing, one person's standing, one person's kneeling, that's showing a discrepancy between the two. And the whole idea is this diversity and expression of it. You can't be unified in one person doing one thing and one person doing another, and that already the two show that they're not in unison with one another with it, to where it just frustrates me with the whole thing. And getting back to it, this was one thing with the XFL. The XFL focused on football. It focused on making football the best it could be. It got away from all this garbage. They weren't allowed to do it. It was in their contracts. And you know what? It was nice because they didn't deal with it. They didn't have to deal with it. They knew they didn't have to. The guys played football. They played well. They were exciting to watch. The guys got excited on the sidelines. They got excited. They were allowed to express themselves. And, the funny thing is that I remember reading all the articles, talking to the people that I have talked to, who have been involved in the league, and from reading coaches stuff, seeing things with players, watching interviews, listening to interviews, everybody had a fantastic experience with the XFL. Majority of everybody that was in the XFL said it was just reinvigorated. It just re-energized their love for the game. And when you start putting things that aren't in football into football, that's what you're starting to get. The whole thing with where they're at with this unity with it is I agree with her, Dany. I agree with Dany. They need to show unity here, but having diversity of expression is not going to show unity. It's going to show disunity in that, and we'll see where this thing leads. But it just it kind of rubs me the wrong way, and it also too goes to one of the quotes from The Rock. It says, for us as owners, it's our job to identify what their pain, meaning the players, their pain is, and take care of them. Listen, I get that as an owner. I get that that's kind of what you're trying, what you want to do, what you always want to do well for your employees in that. But it also reminds me of, I've got a good friend of mine, who runs, oversees multiple tire stores. And, he was managing a store for a store manager. And, he said he had an employee, and he, don't need to go into details about what was going on with the situation, but he asked him, why is this company here? He was asking that employee that, and the employee said, well, the company's here to, provide for us, to provide for the employees, and, just to be there, and, to provide jobs and do this. And, my buddy looks at me, he goes, I told him straight up, no, the company's here to make money. That's the whole reason why we're in business, is to make money. Yes, we want to do well for our employees. Yes, we want to give you guys good wages. But if we don't make money, we're not going to do that. And the focus is the same here. If they're not going to go into this, if they're not going to make this some type of a business venture to where they're looking towards making money and making this thing succeed and bringing in the dollars, it's not going to do that. And they're not going to take care of these players. And, they're not really going to be looking out for them. And so to see this stuff and to look at these things this way, that's not the way, that you need to be looking at it as running this as a business, because this is really truly going to be a business, and I want this thing to succeed. And, I want this thing, but the more and more I'm seeing, the less and less I'm liking of what the XFL is turning into. That's just my thoughts. And talking about taking care of the players, let's go ahead and let's change gears here a little bit with it, because we have the United Football Players Association, which has just been created. Now, this is a nonprofit that's been created by Kenneth Farrow. Now, if you remember, Kenneth Farrow is one of the running backs, very talented running back for the Seattle Dragons. And I think that this is kind of a neat type of a thing. It's really interesting. It really is... it's a neat approach to kind of try to combat one of the issues that we have with a lot of these players who are not in the NFL, not part of the Players Association. So first and foremost, this is not a union, and this does not need to be a union, because if you get guys in this union, and then, especially if guys get opportunities to play in the NFL, it's going to be really difficult, really hard for them to transition to the Players Association if they get a contract in the NFL. So, with that, they really need to watch that and really need to stay away from that. But I like the way that they're kind of set up. So they're set up as a nonprofit, and the idea is they're kind of like almost like a social welfare organization, or something that kind of, an educational piece, a place where, they can kind of lobby for the players and be kind of the voice of those players that aren't really part of, the NFL Players Association and that type of a thing. So I kind of like the idea of this. Now, they're not allowed to, they're not allowed to be part of contract negotiations and relations of things of labor relations and things of that nature. But the idea is to help those players out who have been involved with situations like with the AAF and with the XFL, and we'll probably see more as things go on and other failed leagues and that with it. So it's kind of a neat thing. It'll be interesting to see how this progresses and what type of a presence that they do have in this space. Because if they can get the support of a lot of the players and that with it, they might actually have an interesting voice, especially when it comes to these spring league startups. It'll be really interesting to see how it goes for the future. So I'm super excited about that. Now, I want to give a shout out to two football players, two guys that have supported this channel. First, I want to give a shout out to Matt Mengel. Matt, thanks for leaving comment on the channel, and it is awesome to see that you're in the spring league, that you're going to be kicking for the Conquerors. I'm excited to watch you play. Looking forward to seeing how well you do in the upcoming game next Tuesday. Looking forward to it. And also, too, I want to give a shout out to another big supporter of this channel, and it's been Ernesto Lacaille. Ernesto, congratulations, man, on signing with the Arizona Rattlers. It's going to be cool to see you back in the indoor/arena football again, kind of working on your skills, having fun in the arena league. It's crazy that you're a 10-year vet, but I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing this upcoming season and also what's going to be happening in the future. I'd love to see you get back in the XFL as well. So I want to do a shout out for both those guys. Go ahead and check them both out. I'll put their information down below. Check out those two guys. All right, now let's make the transition. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about the spring league, and I am excited about this spring league. So we got everything starting off, and listen, they've been doing everything pretty darn good. I'm actually really impressed with what the spring league's been doing. I mean, they're touting themselves as kind of this developmental place where players can come to, develop their skills and to do that. And they're bringing in some big name guys and some guys with a lot of experience, and kind of a little bit of star power. I mean, we saw some photos being released, some videos being released of the players working out, the players going through and running through drills, running through practices. We got to see Mike Singletary, who's working with the team, for Bart Andrus' team. And so it's really cool to kind of see what's going on here. And so let's look at the coaches here, because I want to kind of highlight these 6 coaches, because this is another one of those things. Now, remember, the Spring League is not toting to be what the XFL was. And actually, I think they're really running things a whole lot better than what the AAF ran things. And the AAF kind of toted themselves probably on kind of a little bit higher tier. But for what they are, the Spring League's doing a really nice job of things. Now, I'd like to see a little bit more, social media stuff out there, a little bit more. But listen, they understand what they are, and they're growing things as they can and trying to put things out and learn things as they go and build upon it, which is I think is great. And talent-wise, all across the board, they've been doing great with talent. When it comes to players, I thought that was just fantastic what they brought in for the quarterback position, and even so with the coaches. So let's start right off the bat right there. Let's start with Bart Andrus. And Bart, if you remember, he's going to be coaching the Generals, and he was the Team 9 head coach for the XFL. He was the guy that they brought in to, keep those guys who were in that Team 9, loose, practicing, being ready to get called up, as guys got hurt in the XFL. And he's just had a lot of experience throughout the years, done a lot of things, was, NFL Europe, was in the CFL. So to have him back in coaching again was pretty cool. Now it's Ted Cotrell, he's been a defensive coach all over the place. Was with the Roughnecks this past year, and they ran a fairly decent defense. I mean, they ran a pretty hard-nosed defense there in Houston, and so it's going to be pretty cool to see what he does with this team. Ted is going to be coaching the Blues, and so I think he's got kind of a dynamic quarterback there in Shea Patterson, and so taking that with his defensive style, I think will be really interesting and really neat to see what's going on. And then we've got Steve Fairchild, and Steve is going to be the quarterback for the Alphas, and Steve is a guy who's really been he's been really an offensive mind throughout his whole career. And so he's been a lot of different places, every level of football he can be. And he's been with the Spring League. He's one of these veteran Spring League guys. So he's been with the Spring League since 2017. He knows what the Spring League is. He knows what they want. And so it's kind of a nice thing to see that with it. And I'm also excited too because he's got JT Barrett with him, and to bring a guy who's got that kind of, offensive mindset, and bringing in, a guy like a general on the field like JT Barrett, I think it'll be bode really well for the Alphas with this. So I'm really excited with that. And then we've got Terry Shea, and Terry is the quarterback for the Aviators. And, Terry's kind of one of those guys. He's been kind of like a quarterback guru, so to say. He's worked with a lot of high-profile prospect from, Sam Bradford, Matthew Stafford, Josh Freeman, Blaine Gabbert, RG3. So you've got a lot of guys that he's worked with to bring up in that with it. So I think it'll be, really interesting to see what he does with the Aviators there with it. And it would be cool to see if they've got a really high-powered offense, to see how they run and how they do that. And then now, this is, of course, I'm terrible with names. So, Chuck, I apologize if I completely botch your name. But Chuck Bresnahan, there we go. So, Chuck is a guy who's been a defensive coach through another guy who's kind of done it all at every level of football, and he's going to be the head coach of the Jousters. And so we'll see what happens with their team and what they do there with it. And then rounding it out, there's the sixth head coach is Jerry Glanville, legendary Jerry Glanville. This guy's a character. He was fantastic to watch with the XFL, his dual headphones going on, his headsets and that with it. The guy's got a lot of fire in his belly. You could definitely tell that the XFL rejuvenated him, and that and he ran a really interesting defense with the Vipers and that. So it'll be really cool to see him back on the sidelines and him actually running the team, as opposed to just being the defensive coordinator. We'll see how that all transpires, but it is cool. I mean, when you look at this, break it down, you got 3 head coaches that are offensive minded, you got 3 that are defensive minded, and I think that it's going to kind of even things out with that for us. But I mean, you couldn't ask for a developmental league like this to bring in not only guys with lots of years of experience, but guys who are well respected not only in the league, but also guys that are respected on the outside, and guys that have kind of been around football in all shapes and sizes, and kind of understand what needs to happen, and kind of been in these places before. I think that, having all these guys, I was really surprised to see this type of coaching talent that they were able to bring in. I'm getting more and more excited for next week's games coming up. I'm hoping to try to figure out, we know that we've got the game Tuesday night on FS1, but I want to figure out where I can find the other games. So if you guys see that, let me know down in the comment section, because I'd really like to know and to do that. And I'm even thinking about possibly next Thursday, looking at the schedule, 8 p.m. Eastern time, maybe even doing a live stream watching the game between the Conquerors and the Generals. I'd love to know if you guys would like to do that together. So anyways, guys, that's all the information that I have for you guys for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts down in the comment section. Let's continue the conversation on down there. All right, I know that you're busy. I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. You have a good night. Bye.